The desert moon of Kael'thara was not meant for the living. The sun burned the surface with relentless radiation during the day, and the night froze the land into jagged sheets of black ice. Storms of metallic sand roared across the plains like angry ghosts, stripping anything unfortunate enough to be caught outside. Which was exactly why the royal convoy had chosen this place. Princess Lyra of the Varelian Empire stood alone in the wasteland, her silver ceremonial cloak torn and flapping violently in the wind. The guards who had escorted her here were already gone, exiled, abandoned, left to die, all because she refused to marry a monster. Lyra clenched her fists, her glowing violet eyes staring at the endless horizon. The air was thin and poisonous to her kind, and the survival bracelet on her wrist blinked angrily, warning her that the environmental filters were failing. 32 hours, the device announced coldly in the Varelian language. Estimated survival time. She laughed bitterly. Her mother, the Empress, had called it a mercy. In truth, it was an execution without blood. 3 days earlier, the throne hall of Varelia Prime glittered with golden light as nobles and diplomats gathered for the royal decree. Towering crystalline pillars reflected the glow of the planet's twin suns, and the air hummed with tension. Princess Lyra stood before the throne. Across from her waited Lord Karvek, a towering warlord whose presence filled the chamber like a shadow. Karvek was feared across half the galaxy. His fleets had crushed rebellions and conquered entire systems. His species, the Drathari, were known for their brutal strength and merciless culture. And today, he had come to claim a bride. Lyra, your refusal dishonors both our empires, Karvek rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. Lyra met his gaze without fear. I will not marry a man who enslaves planets, she said calmly. A murmur rippled through the court. Karvek's red eyes narrowed. This marriage would unite our forces. Your people would rule the galaxy beside us. Lyra shook her head. Not beside you. Beneath you. The Empress's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Enough. Lyra turned toward the throne. Her mother's face was carved from cold authority. You will accept this union, the Empress said. It is necessary for the survival of our empire. No. The single word echoed across the chamber. The Empress closed her eyes slowly. You leave me no choice. The sentence that followed would seal Lyra's fate. Now Lyra stood in the deadly silence of Kael'thara. Her cloak had long since been abandoned to the wind. The once proud princess now wore a damaged survival suit, its systems flickering erratically. Night was approaching. Temperatures were dropping rapidly. Her legs trembled as she walked across the cracked ground, searching for any shelter. Nothing. Just endless black rock and storms of razor-edged dust. Her survival bracelet blinked again. Environmental breach detected. Lyra collapsed onto her knees. The cold was already seeping into her bones. So this is how it ends, she whispered. Not in battle. Not defending her people. But freezing alone on a forgotten moon. The irony almost made her smile. Then she heard something impossible. A sound. A distant rumble. At first she thought it was thunder from another storm, but the noise grew louder. Mechanical. Rhythmic. Engines. Lyra forced her fading vision toward the horizon. A shape was descending from the sky. A ship. Captain Daniel Hayes of the United Terran Expeditionary Corps was not supposed to be anywhere near Kael'thara. The mission had been simple. Survey the system. Chart mineral deposits. Avoid alien politics. But the distress signal had appeared suddenly on his scanner. Faint, fragmented, and barely recognizable. Unknown alien life signature. Human instincts made the decision for him. Divert course, he told the ship's AI. Captain, the AI replied, This moon is classified as hostile to most known species. Someone down there didn't get the memo. The dropship descended through the storm clouds, its reinforced hull rattling violently against the wind. Life signs? Daniel asked. Extremely weak, the AI said. Subject will expire within 2 hours. Not today. The landing thrusters ignited. The ship slammed onto the frozen desert. Daniel grabbed his rifle, survival pack, and stepped into the storm. Lyra barely noticed the figure approaching. Through the haze of frost and exhaustion, she saw a silhouette, tall, armored, moving with purpose. Not Varelian, not Drathari, something else. He knelt beside her. Hey, the stranger said gently. Can you hear me? The language was unfamiliar, yet her translator bracelet struggled to decode it. Help safe. Warm hands lifted her carefully. Lyra's vision blurred. Are you real? She whispered weakly. The stranger smiled behind his helmet. Yeah, he said. I'm real. And then everything went dark. When Lyra woke, she thought she had crossed into the afterlife. The air was warm, the lighting soft. Strange metallic walls surrounded her, and the air smelled clean. She sat up slowly. A man looked up from a nearby console. Human. Lyra had studied many species during her royal education, but she had never seen a human in person. He had dark hair, calm brown eyes, and a quiet confidence that radiated strength. You're awake, he said. She stared at him. You saved me. Daniel shrugged casually. Seemed like the right thing to do. Lyra's mind struggled to process what had happened. Why? Daniel blinked. Why what? Why save me? He leaned back in his chair. Well, where I'm from, leaving someone to die in a desert is generally considered a bad move. Lyra almost laughed. You don't even know who I am. Daniel studied her. You're someone who needed help. The simplicity of that answer stunned her. In the Varelian Empire, every action carried political consequences. Every life had a calculated value. But this human had risked his mission, possibly his life, for a stranger. Lyra lowered her gaze. I am Princess Lyra of the Varelian Empire. Daniel froze. Oh, that kind of princess. Daniel paced the command deck slowly. A royal exile, he muttered. Of course. Lyra stood near the viewport, staring into space. My own empire condemned me, she said quietly. Daniel glanced at her. What did you do? I refused to marry a warlord. He nodded. Fair. She looked at him, surprised. That's all you say? Well, forced marriage usually ends badly. Lyra studied him carefully. You are not afraid? Of you? She gestured vaguely. Of the political consequences of rescuing me. Daniel shrugged. I'm a human soldier. Politics scares me less than paperwork. Lyra blinked. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. For the first time since her exile. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. 3 days later, the ship's alarm blared. Daniel rushed to the control panel. Contact detected, the AI warned. Unknown fleet approaching. Lyra's expression darkened as the screen filled with massive warships. She recognized the formation instantly. Drathari. Lord Karvek had come. Daniel whistled softly. That looks Thun-friendly. Lyra's voice trembled. He will destroy this ship. Probably. Daniel turned to her. So, let's not let him. Karvek's flagship loomed like a black mountain in space. A transmission opened. Karvek's massive figure filled the screen. Human, he growled. You have something that belongs to me. Daniel leaned casually against the console. Pretty sure people aren't property. Karvek's eyes burned with rage. You harbor a fugitive princess. Surrender her. Lyra stepped forward. I will never belong to you, Karvek. Carvex smiled coldly. You already do. Daniel cracked his knuckles. Yeah, that's not happening. The battle that followed would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy, because a single human patrol ship should not have survived against a Drathari fleet. But humans had one terrifying advantage: creativity. Daniel used every trick he had learned in 15 years of combat. Asteroid slingshots, radiation bursts, gravity traps, improvised minefields. One by one, the massive warships fell into chaos. And in the final moment, Daniel aimed the ship directly at Carvex's flagship. Brace, he said calmly. The explosion lit up the stars. When the smoke cleared, the Drathari fleet was retreating. Carvex's flagship drifted powerless. Lyra stared at the battle reports in disbelief. You defeated him. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Technically, we survived him. Lyra turned toward him slowly. My empire abandoned me. Her voice trembled with emotion. But you fought an entire fleet for me. Daniel scratched his head. Well, it seemed unfair otherwise. She stepped closer. You don't even know me. Daniel met her eyes. Maybe not. But I know what kind of person refuses power just to do the right thing. Lyra felt something warm bloom in her chest. For the first time since her exile, she felt something she had nearly forgotten. Hope. Weeks later, the Terran Council received an unexpected visitor. Princess Lyra of the Varelian Empire stood before the leaders of Earth. And beside her stood the human who had saved her life. Her voice echoed through the chamber. My people believed strength came from domination. She gestured toward Daniel. But humanity has shown me something greater. Compassion, courage, honor. The council listened in silence. Lyra continued. I came here seeking refuge. She looked at Daniel. But I found something more. The room held its breath. Lyra took his hand. I found the future. Years later, historians would record a turning point in galactic history. The moment when the Varelian Empire and humanity formed an alliance that reshaped the balance of power. And at the center of that alliance stood two unlikely figures. A princess left to die, and the human soldier who refused to let her. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the fate of the entire galaxy.